Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the chat on rhinos today. I'm pretty excited. Rhinos are one of my favorite animals, and I think that all started back when I was in veterinary school. I did an externship down at Fossil and Wildlife Center down in Glen Rose, Texas, and they had a black rhino there named Coco who had a foot injury that we needed to pack with antibiotic beads to try to control the infection. Now, Coco is actually still at Fossil Run, and over the years has continued to have foot problems and has had all sorts of special shoes made and different things, so it's kind of fun to follow her story. But when I was there, we would go to see Coco, and obviously we needed to have access to her foot, and we would bring a bucket of sweet potatoes, which she absolutely loved. So we'd go into the barn where she was at, and we did all the work on the opposite side of a fence, to keep everything safe, but she'd have to lift up her foot. And she would do almost anything for sweet potatoes. When she heard us come in, she would start jumping up and down, a rhino, black rhino, jumping up and down and squealing like a puppy. It was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. She had some other stories too. She would get out in her pen and she would jump up and grab wires and bounce around with wires in her mouth. Fortunately, she never got the live ones, so Coco was quite a character. So this was a long time ago. I think it was back in 1995, but that experience kind of stayed with me. And since then, I've been fortunate enough to see rhinos out in the wild, and I just love these big guys. So just to kind of put things in perspective, rhinos have been on this earth for over 50 million years. There are 5 species of rhinos remaining. There are 2 in Africa, which is going to be the main focus of our talk, which are the black rhino and the white rhino. And there are 3 species in Asia, which are the Sumatran, the greater one-horned or Indian rhino, and the Javan rhino. Of the 5 species, 3 are critically endangered. The most endangered is the Javan, and the Javan rhino is found in a small preserve in southern Asia. There's only about 35 to 44 individuals total left. Only the male has a horn, and it has a single horn. With the other rhino species, both males and females have horns. The smallest rhino is also found in Asia, and that's the Sumatran rhino. The Sumatran rhino has 2 horns. They're actually the closest living relative to the extinct woolly rhino, and there are less than 100 remaining. So both the Javan and the Sumatran are critically endangered, a status that they share with the African black rhino. The greater one-horned or Indian rhino is faring a little bit better, greater one-horned, so they only have 1 horn. There's only about 1,000 of them remaining, and it's another Asian species. We're going to focus today on the African species of the black and white rhinos, because those are the ones that I have traveled to Africa and that I have seen. Rhinos were once found throughout Africa. At the start of the 20th century, there were over 500,000 rhinos. Estimated numbers today are about 25,000. There are no natural predators to rhinos. The only predator rhinos have are man. 1 rhino is killed every 9 hours. The main threat is poaching for horn. The demand has escalated, especially in Asian countries, especially Vietnam. Rhino horn is made from keratin, the same stuff our hair and our fingernails are made of. There is no proven medicinal value. However, it's been used in traditional medicines for a long time to treat anything from hangovers to cancers, believed to be aphrodisiacs. Again, it's basically you can brew a cup of fingernail tea and you're going to have as much medicinal value as you would from rhino horn. On the black market, rhino horn's worth its weight in gold. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars per kilo for rhino horn. Again, no medicinal value. There's also been some status. There are dagger handles called jambias that are made from rhino horn. That has become less popular, so that's not as much of a demand as it is for the perceived medicine value of them. Now, rhinoceros itself actually means nose horn. That's what the word actually means. And rhinos have really, really good sense of smell and really great hearing. They don't have very good eyesight, which can cause some issues in terms of they frighten very easily and they can charge very readily. For their size, their brains are kind of small, but they do have very large olfactory or smell passages that are actually bigger than their brains themselves, so their sense of smell is very keen. They are all herbivores, so they only eat plants. They really are no threat to us. They can eat up to 100 pounds of food per day. They cover themselves in mud, similar to elephants and hippos, to keep the sun off and also to keep biting insects off. They spend the hottest part of the day usually sleeping. The rest of the day they're wallowing in mud or eating. An interesting thing about them is they have a commensal relationship with oxpecker birds. So this picture of this zebra here, these birds that are on it, these are the red-billed oxpeckers. There are also yellow-billed oxpeckers. The birds actually eat bugs off of a lot of the animals in Africa, and rhinos do enjoy this as well. So they get parasites taken off of them, the birds get a meal, and the other great thing, rhinos don't have a great sense of sight, but these birds, if they sense danger, are very, very loud, and they make huge noise. So the oxpecker birds help the rhinos as an alarm system, as well as helping keep parasites off of them. Now, rhinos have many different ways of communicating, and the white rhinos have a lot more vocalizations. Black rhinos have been known to use some grunts and things. But they, like elephants, they also have an infrasonic sound that they make, so something that we can't hear. But their main way of communicating is actually through their poop. So they eat 100 pounds of food a day, they can produce about 50 pounds of poop a day. And they'll leave this poop around their territory in 20 to 30 different piles. Now, females will cross territories of the males. So the females can kind of go in and out of different territories. The poop piles are actually called middens, and each rhino has their own poop. It's their own signature fragrance, you can say. So each smell is unique. It identifies the animal, it identifies their age, and even their sex. So they can tell a lot from these piles of poop. They also will use their horns to make scrape marks, and they will also urinate, also to mark territory. Now, rhinos, as I said, can frighten very easily, and their first instinct is to charge. So this is something that we really do need to take seriously, because although they're very, very big, they're very agile, and they can actually run over 30 miles per hour. So they can become pretty fast. For those of you that are on my email list, you may have seen the photo that I sent of, we did get charged by a black rhino when we were on Old Pejida in Kenya, and the rhino got very close to the car. Nobody was injured, everything was fine. But you can really see he was in a distance, and then all of a sudden, boom, he was like practically at the car. So they can go really, really, really fast. So that is the subject of the painting that I started. So for those of you that have seen my Facebook post, I said, let's see how far I can get. So this is a painting of the black rhino that charged us, and it's called Imminent Charge. It's not quite finished, just about there. I actually started it the day before yesterday. But you can see, I mean, this rhino is looking right at us. His tail is straight up in the air, and he's really just ready to go. So why do I have these zebra paintings and another zebra painting, which I just finished, and my horse painting? The closest relatives to the rhino are the other odd-toed ungulates, or so the three-toed tapir is the closest relative. Rhinos have 3 distinct toes on their feet, but also horses and zebras, who basically walk around on the equivalent of 1 toe. The lifespan of most rhinos is between 35 to 50 years. Sexual maturity is about 6 to 7 years for females and about 7 to 10 for males. They tend to only have 1 calf, so a rhino male is a bull, the female is a cow, and the baby's a calf. And they will nurse for about a year, but oftentimes they stay with the mothers for a few years. Gestation for rhinos is about 15 to 16 months. And I'm going to go into a little bit of differences between black rhinos and white rhinos. So the one I just showed you that that charged us was a black rhino. And it's going to be a little hard to see from this distance, but they have a pointed lip. They are browsers, so they actually pull leaves off of bushes and trees and things. They are smaller than the white rhino. So a black rhino averages about 1,800 to 3,500 pounds, will stand 4.5 to 5.5 feet at the shoulder and be about 10 to 12 feet long. versus a white rhino, which is bigger. They average about 5,000 pounds and can get upwards of over 7,500 pounds. They're also about 5 to 6 feet tall at the shoulder and about 12 to 15 feet long. So they do look different, and white rhinos also have a very wide, straight lip. So this one right here, so I call this one Hope. And in Hope, you can see Hope is a white rhino and has a very flat lip. So their names are not their colors. A white rhino is not white, a black rhino is not black. They're both just shades of gray. What it was is what they believe is that there's an Afrikaans word for wide that they think got misinterpreted as white. So the wide-lipped grazer, which is the white rhino, got called white rhino, but it's really for wide lip. They wanted to distinguish it from the black rhino with pointed lip, so how you distinguish something from white, you call it black. So they think that's kind of how the common names originated on both of these. Now with the black rhinos, they are more solitary, they can be more aggressive, and they do use their horns both as display and they do use them as weapons. The black rhino's horns can grow a bit longer than white rhino horns, and the females tend to have longer and thinner horns than the males. They can grow over 4 feet long, in fact. The rhinos, the black rhinos especially, well, they can say they enjoy a fight. I don't know if they really enjoy it, but they actually have the highest death rate of any animal for interspecies fights. So, fights among the same species. When black rhinos fight, 50% of the males and 30% of the females will die in these fights. These fights can be very serious. And I've seen many rhinos out in the wild that have had eye infections or missing eyes as a result from these altercations. White rhinos are a bit more social. So the females and calves will form groups together. And one of my favorite groups was, when I talked about hippos, was a bloat of hippos. A group of rhinos is called a crash, which I absolutely love. We already talked about how they're a bit bigger. We're going to talk a little bit about northern and southern white rhinos in just a minute, which are the two subspecies, although there's some argument that they're actually separate species, but I'll come back to that. So they are more vocal. In fact, the rhino that I based Hope on was actually a rhino that was on a conservancy that we were on safari, and she had gotten separated from her group. Their eyesight's bad. She thought our safari vehicle might be another rhino. She actually followed us, crying for us, and trotting after us for a while. She wasn't chasing us. She thought we were her friends. We did try to find some other white rhinos to get her reunited with, but unfortunately we didn't succeed, and I'm sure at some point in time, well, at least I would hope that she would find them. So rhinos are really interesting, so they do graze a lot, and they have to feed daily, but they can go 4 to 5 days without water, which I think is really, really amazing. The white rhino population for the southern white rhino is about 20,000, so they are actually considered near threatened. A couple other kind of little fun differences. Black rhino calves tend to walk behind their moms, white rhino calves tend to walk in front of their moms. So they think that might be because the white rhino has their head down for grazing, and they can keep a better eye on the babies when they do that. Now, I mentioned the northern and southern white rhinos. So southern white rhinos, there's about 20,000 left. The northern white rhinos, there's two. That's it. Northern white rhinos are a bit different. They're slightly smaller than their southern white rhino counterparts. Their backs are straighter, they have a flatter skull, and they don't have as pronounced grooves between the ribs. They also have hairier ears and tails, and they tend to have shorter front horns. Now, the northern white rhino went extinct in the wild about 20 years ago. So the only ones that were still in existence were all in captivity. The San Diego Wild Animal Park did have some. They have in recent years all passed of natural causes. Now, the large painting up above me is my tribute to Sudan. So this was probably one of the most emotional experiences I have ever had. We were on safari at Old Pejeta in Kenya, which is an amazing conservancy, and they do so much work with rhinos. I can't say enough about Old Pejeta. Because they do such great work, they were entrusted with the remaining northern white rhinos. Sudan himself was captured in the wild in 1975. He was the last northern white rhino to be wild caught. He lived in zoos throughout most of his life, and in 2009, with 3 other northern white rhinos, they were transferred from a zoo in the Czech Republic to Old Pejida in Kenya with hopes that they would breed. Suni was the other male, so there were the 2 males and 2 females, and Suni passed away of natural causes in 2014, leaving Sudan as the last remaining male northern white rhino. I met Sudan in 2016. So while we were at Old Pejida, you were allowed to go in there. And again, these rhinos, the northern whites that they had, were all raised in captivity. I was actually allowed to go up to Sudan and scratch him, obviously with the people that took care of him, his caretakers, and he had a very, very good life out there. It was amazing to me to be able to, first of all, be completely there were no constraints. I just got off the vehicle and Sudan came up with one of his keepers, and I was able to put some squashes and sweet potatoes and things on the ground, and just like Coco, he was happy to sit there and munch away. And they let me go up and touch him and scratch him, and it's amazing to have your hands on one of these big mega herbivores, these amazing animals. So I was so elated, but at the same time, I thought, I'm touching the last male of a species. Like, this is an animal going extinct in our lifetime because of us. And so the joy was mixed with such sorrow, and it was just a crazy emotional roller coaster ride. But I'll never forget that experience. Unfortunately, Sudan did have to get put down on March 19th in 2018, so about 2 years later. He had had an injury in his foot and his leg that they had been treating for a long time, and unfortunately the infection was taking such a toll on his health, he was suffering, and so he was put down in 2018, which means there are no more males. So there are 2 remaining northern white rhinos, his daughter Nejin and his granddaughter Fatu. Nejin has some leg problems. She could not tolerate a breeding, and she's also too old really to be bred. And Fatu has a uterine condition, and she cannot get pregnant. So I'm going to take a little ethical turn on this. There is a lot of research being done trying to save the northern white rhino. And again, I told you there's only 2 females, and neither of which can be bred. From the animals that have passed through natural causes, they've been able to store sperm and store eggs from them. The thoughts are to possibly do in vitro fertilization using the southern white rhino as a surrogate. They have had success in creating a hybrid embryo of a northern and southern, but creating a hybrid is not saving a species, it's a hybrid. And there is still the question of, are they actually subspecies or are they separate species? If they are successful, even in using the southern whites as surrogates, they have genetic material from 13 individuals. So if they are able to get some northern white rhino, pure embryos, can you save a species with such limited genetics? I mean, we're talking 13 animals, and of course not all of their DNA is going to be viable. They're estimating these projects to take over $10 million if they are successful. I think it's great to try to save species. I think the research they're doing is amazing and it's going to be so helpful. My question is, what about the Sumatran and the Javan rhinos, where we actually have more living animals and there's more of them, even though the numbers are very small? Would it be worthwhile to divert that money towards them because there's a little bit more hope? And as much as I hate to see any animal disappear, would that be a better use? I don't know. And I'm sure there are many people who would disagree with me, some people that would agree with me. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. It's just more kind of opening up this question as we're looking at another period where we're undergoing mass extinctions. Where's the best resources? What's the best use of our resources, and where should our focus be? Rhetorical question, just kind of throwing it out there. So anyways, I welcome any comments, I welcome any questions, and again, I'm completely fine with people that say no, we should put everything we have into saving the northern white rhino, and if we were successful, oh my gosh, how incredible would that be? I mean, the southern sea otters came back from a population of about 50 animals. The northern elephant seals have come back from a population estimated between 20 and 100. So yes, they have a lack of genetic diversity, but there is possibility there. So I'm not saying that it's not worth it, but it's just, again, one of these questions that I kind of go back and forth and back and forth. So just a little, the other paintings that I have up here. This one I call Meeting of the Minds. It's two white rhinos that I saw in Lake Nakuru. So there was a crash of rhinos on the beach. So it was a group of them, and they were just, they're social. They hang together. So it was most likely a mother and her calf. You will notice there's a big hump at the back of the neck, and that is what we see with the white rhinos. The black rhinos don't have that big hump that we see. Again, you can look at my Facebook page, and the email that I sent out has photos that shows the difference between black and white rhinos. So I encourage you to go ahead and just you can find that in my feed pretty easily. You can also join my email list at www.michellemccunedvm.com. If you join my email, I send out information like this with photos about once a week, and you also will get a special discount coupon for any prints on my website. All of the paintings that are here are all available. I also have prints for everything. And I'm going to end this with a request. I really need input. So if you can comment, if you can like, if you can share, if you can let me know what animals you want to hear about. Are you more interested in my painting process? I spend a few hours doing these, preparing for these every week, and I just want to make sure I am serving you guys the best I can. So please let me know, and I hope to see you again next week. Obviously, if you want to support rhinos, International Rhino Keepers, Save the Rhino, Old Pejida, there are many, many, many organizations that can benefit from you, and poaching is on the rise right now because there is no tourism. Without the ecotourism and the pressure on the economy in African countries, poaching is on the rise. So they need our help more than ever. So if you want any more information, contact me, and I can definitely get you websites and put you in touch with some really good organizations. I hope to hear from you. I hope you guys enjoyed this and maybe learned something new. And as always, please just comment, and I will be sure to get back with you. Thanks again.